Good day, grade 8s. Today's lesson is language and comprehension, and the title of the comprehension is The Wasteland. Please complete the answers in your language book in front. Okay, I'm going to read the story with you and then we'll go through the questions. The Wasteland by Alan Payton. Please, when you read through it, I need you to focus on the setting and the characters and why they've used dialogue in this comprehension. The dialogue is there so that you can understand what is happening between father and son. Okay. The moment that the bus moved on, he knew he was in danger, for by the lights of it he saw the figures of young men waiting under the tree. Okay, so this is about a father or a man coming home from work. He has bus transport, and when he gets off the bus, he can see in the distance that there are three figures waiting for him. That was the thing feared by all, to be waited for by the young men. It was a thing he had talked about. Now he was to see it for himself. It was too late to run after the bus. It went down the dark street like an island of safety in a sea of perils. Perils, danger. Though he had known of his danger only for a second, his mouth was already dry, his heart was pounding in his breast. Something within him was crying out in protest against the coming event. Coming event? He would be robbed or possibly killed. His wages were in his purse, meaning his salary. He could feel them weighing heavily against his thigh. So he can feel his money and his wallet on his upper thigh, his leg. That was what they wanted from him. Nothing counted against that. His wife could be made a widow, his children made fatherless. Nothing counted against that. Mercy was the unknown word. While he stood there, irresolute, meaning he can't move, he heard the young men walking towards him, not only from the side where he had seen them, but from the other also. They did not speak. Their intention was unspeakable. The sound of their feet came on the wind to him. The place was well chosen, for behind him was the high wall of the convent, and the barred door that would not open before a man was dead. So behind him, there's no place to run. On the other side of the road was the wasteland. Okay, so the wasteland, it's a part of estate that is used for wire and iron, and they put car parts there or smashed up cars. So it looks like a panel beater's yard. So it's a wasteland. It's where people just dump everything. On the other side of the road was the wasteland, full of wire and iron and the bodies of old cars. It was his only hope, and he moved towards it. As he did so, he knew from the whistle that the young men were there too, so they are following this man. His fear was great and instant, and the smell of it went from his body to his nostrils. So he kind of smells his own fear. At that very moment one of them spoke, giving directions. So trapped was he that he was filled suddenly with strength and anger, and he ran towards the wasteland, swinging his heavy stick. In the darkness a form loomed up at him, and he swung the stick at it, and heard it give a cry of pain. Then he plunged blindly into the wilderness of wire and iron and the bodies of old cars. So this man is trying to get away from the thieves. And as he's doing so, he hit one with a stick, his walking stick. And as the boy or young man cries out in pain, he's trying to hide away from them. So he's crawling around between iron and probably cutting himself on the wires, and he's trying to hide. Something caught him by the leg, and he brought his stick down on it. But it was no man, only some knife-edged piece of iron. He was sobbing and out of breath, but he pushed on into the waste, while behind him they pushed on also, knocking against the old iron bodies and kicking against tins and buckets. He fell into some grotesque shape of wire. Grotesque? It's ugly, it's messy, it's wires everywhere. It was barbed and tore at his clothes and flesh. Then it held him, so that it seemed to him that death must be near. And having no other hope, he cried out, "Help me, help me," in what should have been a great voice, but was voiceless and gasping. He tore at the wire, and it tore at him too, ripping his face and his hands. So the wire is cutting him into pieces, it's cutting his flesh. Then suddenly he was free. He saw the bus returning, and he cried out again in the great voiceless voice, "Help me! Help me!" Against the lights of it he could plainly see the form of one of the young men. Death was near him, and for a moment he was filled with the injustice of life. That could end thus for one who had always been hard-working and law-abiding. He lifted the heavy stick and brought it down on the head of his pursuer, so that the man crumpled to the ground, moaning and groaning as though life had been unjust to him also. So this man is fighting back, and he hit the thief against the head. Then he turned and began to run again, but ran first into the side of an old lorry, which sent him reeling, meaning falling. He lay there for a moment expecting the blow that would end him, but even then his wits came back to him, and he turned over twice and was under the lorry. His very entrails, meaning what he had for lunch or for supper, is now making him nauseous. His very entrails seemed to be coming into his mouth, and his lips could taste sweat and blood. His heart was like a wild thing in his breast, and he seemed to lift his whole body each time that it was beating. He tried to calm it down, thinking it might be heard, and tried to control the noise of his gasping breath, but he could not do either of these things. Then suddenly, against the dark sky, he saw two of the young men. He thought they must hear him, but they themselves were gasping like drowned men, and their speech came by fits and starts. Okay, so these men are trying to find him as well, and they're also running around. Okay, now this part is where the dialogue starts. Then one of them said, "Do you hear?" They were silent, except for their gasping, listening, and he listened also, but could hear nothing but his own exhausted heart. "I heard a man running on the road," said one. "He's got away. Let's go." Then some more of the young men came up, gasping and cursing the man who had got away. "Freddie," said one, "your father's got away." But there was no reply. "Where's Freddie?" one asked. One said, "Quiet." Then he called in a loud voice, "Freddie!" But still there was no reply. "Let's go," he said. They moved off slowly and carefully. Then one of them stopped. "We are saved," he said. "Here is the man." He knelt down on the ground and then fell to cursing. "There's no money here," he said. One of them lit a match, and in the small light of it the man under the lorry saw him fall back. "It's Freddie," one said. "He's dead." Then the one who had said quiet spoke again. "Lift him up," he said. "Put him under the lorry." The man under the lorry heard them struggling with the body of the dead young man, and he turned once, twice, deeper into his hiding place. The young men lifted the body and swung it under the lorry so that it touched him. Then he heard them moving away, not speaking, slowly and quietly, making an occasional sound against some obstruction in the waste. He turned on his side so that he would not need to touch the body of the young man. He buried his face in his arms and said to himself in the idiom of his own language, "People, arise, the world is dead." Then he arose himself and went heavily out of the wasteland. So Freddy is this man's son. And Freddy, with his friends, planned to rob his own father to steal his wages, his salary. And while this man was trying to get away from the young man, which he accidentally killed with his walking stick, he did not realize it was his own son that he was killing. Okay, so people arise, the world is dead. Means that this man feels that now this whole world has ended because he killed his own son. Okay, I'm going to ask you complete questions 1 to 9. Only the answers. Comment on the title of the story. Remember, it's called The Wasteland. What do you think is the intention of the author? Then explain in a few sentences what happened in the story. 4. What do you think could cause a son to lay in wait to attack his father? 5. What do you feel about Freddy's actions? Do you agree that children should rob their own parents, probably kill their own parents? 6. Say what you know about the father, Freddy, and Freddy's friends. Discuss the setting of the story. 8. What purpose does the dialogue serve in the story? Remember in the beginning I told you it's to make clear what is happening. Otherwise you would have never known that Freddy was the man's son. What purpose? Well, okay, we did that one. 9. What is the theme of the story? What is it about? What is the theme? What is happening in it? Then I need you to complete questions 12 to 14. Please, there's no 10 or 11. Question 12, find synonyms from this short story for the following words: covered, barrier, crouch, and safeguarded. 13, you need to find antonyms from the story for the words alive, dropped, quickly, and noisily. Then the word waste from the title is a homonym. Explain that to me. That is your work that you need to complete for today. Thank you.